Well, we'll begin here. Government has extended the temporary reduction of the fuel levy for another month, but a hefty increase still on the cards. Petrol prices could have reached close to R4 without the extension. Government reduced the levy by R1.50 a litre for April and May to relieve the economy amid surging oil prices. However, oil hit its highest levels in 2 months yesterday, trading above $120 a barrel. Well, in a statement, we understand this is a joint statement, of course, that's just come in between National Treasury, Mineral Resources and Energy, of course, the Finance Minister, as well as the Mineral Resources and Energy Ministers jointly releasing a statement about that extension of the temporary reduction in the general fuel levy. Now, let's discuss this. We are now joined via Zoom by Stefanie Fick, OUTA's Executive Director for Accountability. Well, of course, there's a lot to discuss, and thank you so much for joining our program.
It's only a pleasure.
Fantastic. Perhaps let's start with this joint statement that's just come through. I mean, we are still waiting for confirmation from government exactly how much the fuel will rise and increase by. Of course, we understand that to be likely looking at more than or close to R4 per litre, which is very steep. But of course, the good news here, somewhat of that extension of the temporary reduction in the general fuel levy. As OUTA, what's your reaction and comment to that?
Sure. I think if that is really the truth, it is good news, because I think that the petrol price is becoming a big issue. You know, it's one of those issues when it's becoming this, people can't afford it. And it is one of the things that has an impact across the board. I think the impact it has on the less fortunate is even worse, because we all know the minute the petrol price goes up, transport costs go up. If transport costs go up, what we pay for food and all the essential stuff all goes up. And I think it's during a time that, you know, we can ill afford it. Our economy is not what it is supposed to be. We have an unemployment rate that is skyrocketing. We are struggling. The oil price is going up. So it is good news. It's I mean, we're not going to get the petrol for free. That is, you know, that will probably be the best news, but it is good. But what government should not stop here. One realizes that this creates a deficit in the income, but hopefully it will also make government sit and really think hard about where they're going to get the money. And I think if they look at the expenses, if they really seriously start looking at government's expenses, and we can talk a lot about, you know, government's expenses, but also we need to start plugging the holes, making sure that there's no money lost to corruption. Because what it does is, although the petrol price is going up and we pay an enormous amount for, you know, the levies, what is also having a great impact is the rand-dollar exchange. And that is because there's no, you know, the value of our rand is not doing great. And we need economic growth.
I mean, of course, you know, just reading into the statement, you know, saying that due to the significant monthly increase, the Minister of Finance today actually submitting that letter to the Speaker of the National Assembly requesting the tabling of a 2-month proposal, which is, of course, good news. But Stefanie, what do you make of the fact that, I mean, we're still waiting for government to confirm just how much petrol will increase by? Is that in any way a sign for government to understand that South Africans simply cannot afford it? I mean, I know you saying that, of course, there's very little that government can do, even in their statement, you know, citing the key drivers for these increases that we're seeing, and of course the Ukraine-Russia conflict being one of those.
Yeah. You know, on the one hand, I want to say I do feel sorry for the Minister of Finance that needs to find a deficit in his budget because of, just the levy, the reprieve that we were given on the petrol levy. But, we also need to understand that although it might not be his fault, we need to find the reason for this petrol and petrol levies being out of control. I mean, the percentage of increases that happened is over 13 years, for example, the Road Accident Fund levy increased by 364%. I mean, that's 13% per annum. When is the last time that any of us got an increase of 13% per annum? So things got out of control, and you can't keep on passing that onto, for example, the motorist, the taxpayer, each and every normal South African. You need to find the solutions. And just out of interest sake, we tend to make reference to the fact that the oil per barrel is expensive, but it may help to say that in March of this year, the oil per barrel were at $97. It's not as much as it were in 2008 when it was $120 per barrel. So it is the rand. However, the difference between the rand dollar was in 2008, it was 7 rand 82. Now we are at 15 rand and 23 cents. It's double. So you can see the significant change that brings to what we pay for petrol. So we need to work on other factors as well in order to make sure that we get some relief. The petrol levy, taxes. I mean, we heard yesterday the white paper on transport that they are looking at, increasing that because they need money for certain things in transport. It has become unbearable. And what they're going to do is they're going to damage this economy even more. Small businesses cannot handle this.
As we wait for the actual adjustment with bated breath, before that increase kicks in at midnight tonight, there've been calls for government to consider scrapping all taxes, all levies in the long term, on the current petrol price, essentially saving consumers around about 3 rands 93 cents per litre. What's your take on such calls? And I mean, to what end will it actually help us in the long run?
I think it's about being accountable for collecting certain revenue and then the spending thereof. Because I think what we are finding hard is to extrapolate the fact that we pay an enormous amount for petrol. Part of that petrol is, it's just tax on tax. You pay for fuel levy, road accident fund, slate levy. You pay all of this. And all you hear is the misspending. I mean, we've just heard about the Transnet executives that were arrested for just the billions that was lost, during state capture, and how many was held accountable for this. So there's not a balance between getting easy money, because the petrol leveling, the taxes being paid on petrol is easy income. Because what are you going to do? You can't take half the petrol at a petrol station and say, listen, keep that part, I'll only pay for this part. So it's an easy way. That income is forced. You're forced to pay that. But then you see how your finances are spent. And we have problems in this country that I think needs attention. Our health system, our education system, and if we can save some of these taxes, that will, if we can understand that or realize that the taxes that is collected are spent in a way that will bring, a relief to the poor, that will give our children proper education, then, there's reasoning behind paying taxes. None of us wants to pay taxes, but there's a reason behind it. And I just think that we lost the plot somewhere, that, we just keep on increasing taxes because we need the revenue. But then when it comes to spending, there's no accountability. And I really think that we need to relook at how government spends their money. But to come back to the fuel prices, yes, I do think what it does require is, again, industry looking, sitting together and finding a way of decreasing some of these levies.
Stefanie, a quick one, and as we wrap this conversation, of course, Africa has always been encouraged to find African solutions. So what is the likelihood that we will be procuring oil in the near future, for instance, in countries like Nigeria, which is very rich, in oil and being one of the largest producers?
Yes, I like what you say, because we finding solutions, because I always say I think we're special enough so that the solution should suit us as a nation, and that is a possibility. I just think that places like Nigeria, there's infightings and all of that. As long as we can eradicate the corruption that is really an illness in our country, that we can get value for money. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Fantastic. Stefanie, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Stefanie Fick there is OUTA's Executive Director for Accountability. Let's take you here.